Alright, everybody, welcome to the profile of the beresheet moonlander. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, it did not work. They crashed about 20-30 minutes ago from the time that I'm recording this video. I don't know how long it will take to get uploaded, but probably within the day we have learned that it failed. So, quick mission overview. What we're seeing right now is the launch of the Falcon 9. Now, obviously, this is not the best modeled Falcon 9, nor was it meant to be. It's not a Falcon 9 video. I didn't worry about putting landing legs on and landing the first stage, doing all of those things. However, in the real mission profile, that did occur. So here we go. We're going up. We're on our way. The beresheet lander did not launch on its own. It launched with a communication satellite, which is also inside of our fairing up there. We'll be able to get a nice view of that after we were able to ditch that fairing because we're out of the atmosphere. So here's our ascent profile, trying to get 45 degrees by 10,000 meters. A little off, but pretty close. Now we do not follow that curve all the way down though and get into a nice low circular orbit because we want to put these two spacecraft into a elliptical orbit, a highly elliptical orbit. We're going to put the one into, I believe it went into geostationary transfer is where we were headed. I wasn't that accurate with where I was headed, but yeah, here we go. So this is current KSP version 1.7. Absolutely no mods on here. This is completely vanilla. I just downloaded it maybe 3 or 4 hours ago, hopped on, made this mission, and here we are. So here we go through the ascent. We'll be hitting max Q. We would have been through max Q already. I missed it. But first stage cutoff coming here in 1 second. There we go. Separation and second stage ignition. Following the standard kind of the standard profile. We point prograde. We're getting really high in the atmosphere, getting very rarefied. We're going to tip back a little bit, make sure we get into a nice tall orbit here. And we're going to open those fairing up, expose the spacecraft to the vacuum of space for the first time. There they are. So, beresheet lander on top. This follows the actual mission profile. And you see it there. Down below, we have the communication satellite on top of the second stage of the Falcon 9. So we're continuing to burn. Just raising up our orbit nice and high. And engine shut off. So SECO, second engine cut off, and now we're going to be here pointing prograde, getting ready to separate the beresheet lander from the top of our I almost called it a missile stack, our rocket stack. Beresheet was separated about 33 minutes after liftoff. Here in Kerbal Space Program, it of course occurs a lot faster. Shortly after separation, we had the landing legs deploy. And that also, when those landing legs deploy, that activates all of the sensor suites and the communication array. So at this point, beresheet knew that they were in business, the team at Space IL. Obviously, if we continue that path, we would have crashed back into the Earth, so we're going to do our circularization burn to get into a highly elliptical orbit. Now, just quick orbital mechanic thing. The faster you're going, the more effective your burn is. And so if we were to go all the way to the top of that burn, and we would burn to a perfectly circular orbit, we would then have to burn again to get out to the moon. However, because we're going to stay in this elliptical orbit, we can use the Oberth effect. And when we are at the low point of the orbit and traveling faster, if we burn there, then we can go really high and with less delta V. So here's the separation of the communication satellite, which occurred about, I want to say 50 minutes after launch. I may be wrong there, don't quote me on that. But we then extend our solar panels on our communication satellite that was launched as well. And the antenna. Of course, there are more antenna and things that get deployed on that spacecraft. I wasn't really trying to make a good model of that particular spacecraft. I just needed it to model the mission correctly. So again, I don't know what orbit it went into or how long it took to get there. So I just went ahead and circularized its orbit, and there we go. Back to the beresheet. Now, let's talk about the beresheet's main engine. Well, actually, let's talk about what beresheet is, where it's from, and who made it. So, the Falcon 9. That's funny. I told you I was going to talk about it, and then I get off track and talk about something else. Um, the Falcon 9 is a privately owned company. Of most people who are watching this video probably know that, but no government owns it. They are a private sector company. If they run out of money, they're not a company anymore. They're really good at getting really good at launching rockets. I really enjoy watching them launch. And so beresheet here, I'll explain this pulsing technique here in just a minute. Um, and we made it into orbit. Great. Okay, so beresheet is a spacecraft, a lunar lander, was a lunar lander, that was built by Space IL. And Space IL became a company because of the Google X Prize. So Google, a few years ago, said we want to put out a money cash prize if you are able to put a lunar lander on the moon. Obviously, it needed to do a few other things. Needed to be able to traverse, move across the surface a little bit, and do some other things and do some science while it was up there. And also, less than 25% of the funding could be from governments, and so they really wanted to fund a private company to go and do this. There are multiple teams who are still working on their lunar lander missions, but Space IO is just the first. Unfortunately, the Google X Prize, has expired. They extended it twice, and it concluded without a winner. So they will not be awarded any money. Well, A, because they didn't make it, but B, if they would have landed today, they also would not have won any money from Google because that event was over. That contest was over. That was just the circularization burn of our communication satellite, and we're going to switch back to our beresheet lander. And we're going to just do a quick thing here, make sure that we're not going to crash back into that communication satellite. Our separation is quite far, unset from target. And here we go. So now we need to point back towards the sun, charge up those batteries. Don't want to run out of battery power. So, disclaimer really quickly as we come back down. This mission is obviously not ran live. The mission was recorded. But this is the second time I did the mission. So the first time I did the mission, I wanted to just test it out, make sure everything worked. All the delta V was there that I needed, did all the math, everything should have worked, but nothing is as good as getting down and actually doing it. So I ran the mission, and I got to the point in which I did the burn, and I got a lunar capture about right there. And I thought to myself, man, this mission is going so well. I should be recording this. So I started recording it at that point. Then I went back and ran the mission again, which is what we're watching here. And unfortunately, I was not paying attention to my batteries. And when I came in for the moon landing, my batteries were dead, and I cratered myself into the moon, which is not what happened to beresheet. I want to make that very clear. But knowing now that beresheet didn't make it, I could have just done it from there. But we're not going to. I'm going to pause this video here in just a minute after we do the lunar orbit insertion burn, and then we will finish it over on, which was actually the first mission. But I don't want everybody to get upset if you're a KSP purist, because I want you to watch my Delta V over on the left that's blue above the engines. I will circle it right over here, because I actually end up with more Delta V on this mission than I did on the other mission, the first one, that we actually do the lunar landing on, so don't get too upset. There's a nice little view of the silhouette against some of the background. Pretty cool. Take some screenshots here of your phone if you want to use that as a wallpaper. I know that I will be doing that later myself. So here we come around. Now in real life, the thrusters on the outside of the lander would be pulsing to help settle that fuel down to the back of the tank in order to light the main engine. Now, let's talk about this engine for a minute since we're doing the pulsing. Now you may have noticed, if you were keen-eyed, that the right here is where we're going to pause this. We're going to exit out, and we're going to pull up the other Kerbal Space Program. Okay. Um, so they're essentially on the exact same trajectory. I don't show the trajectory path here, and I should have, but they you'll have to take my word for it. It may as well have been the same mission. Okay. As I was saying, so point those solar panels around, get them charged up again. That's so close. Lost my train of thought. Oh, this engine. So the main engine that they used for the beresheet lander has never been used to land on the moon. It's actually the main engine that they typically use for large communication spacecraft, which is why I used it on my large communication spacecraft that also was on this mission. Now, I don't know if they actually used the same engine on this particular mission, but they very well could have. So when beresheet or the team at Space IL came to the decision of making an engine or finding a main engine, they selected this company who makes this engine. Very reliable. It's used all the time for large spacecraft. But it's not used in the capacity that they needed to use it in. It cannot be throttled, for one. So it's on or it's off, and that's it, which makes it very difficult, as you can imagine, for a number of reasons. So they did extensive testing to make sure that it would be able to handle the extra the stresses of the pulsing of the engine. Maybe they didn't do enough testing. Maybe they were wrong. I don't know. We don't have a full breakdown of what went wrong with the spacecraft, but we do know that as it was coming in for a landing, there was a problem with the main engine, and the main engine came back online. They were descending too quickly. They shortly after lost telemetry and never got it back. That was the last thing they heard from the spacecraft. Was essentially, um, "There's a problem. My main engine is not working." And um, oh, I'm back. I'm going really fast, and that's it. That's all we heard from the spacecraft. So we may get more information later, and we might not. Who knows? They did, however, was able to send back one awesome picture of the moon, a little Israeli flag there. It says "Small country, big dreams" or something like that. And the picture of the moon in the background. Really cool. Glad we got that off the spacecraft before it cratered itself on the moon. Technically did land, just not in one piece. It's in multiple pieces, but it is on the moon. Okay, so now we're doing this pulsing again. This is the lunar orbit capture burn, which we successfully performed here, and they also successfully performed that burn about a week ago. Getting down, and there's going to be our descent burn. So this would take us to about to today, in real time, in real life. Now, I don't know why they pulsed the engine like that for the capture burn and things. I don't know. And I also don't know if the constant pulsing of the engine led to the eventual failure of some engine parts. But the telemetry did say the engine came back online, so I'm not sure what caused the failure. They also had a failure of the main engine when they attempted to do the first orbit maneuver to start raising the orbit to get to the moon. The main engine just didn't light. And so not really sure what was going on, but they kind of had problems with that main engine the whole time, and it kind of seems like it was the main engine failure that caused the failure of the lander here also. So if you're going to be making a moon lander by yourself or with a small group of friends, make sure you select a good main engine because it may make or break the mission. Now here we flip over, soaking in some battery power from the sun essentially, before we flip over and do our descent burn. Now I went ahead and included my bloopers here on this recording because why not? It's kind of fun to watch the bloopers. Um, I think I failed 3 or 4 times before we landed successfully. But here we go. So here we do that pulsing again to get us down. And we're at the point of no return now. We are going to be on the moon one way or another. Oh, here we go. Gonna flip over and get some battery power from the sun there. When you're trying to land on another um, body, whether that be a planet or a moon or asteroid, there are so many ways it can go wrong, and very few ways that it can go right. So you've really got to be um, on it. I mean, luck has nothing to do with it, I don't really think, but um, sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. So just ran out of excuse me, just ran out of luck here on the mission today. Which is a bummer. It would have made Israel the fourth country to land on the moon. It would have been America, Russia, and China. Of course, China just landed in the moon at the very beginning of 2019 on the far side of the moon. First time we ever did that. Grab another quick save right there. So we're coming down, and I forgot to flip that. That's a new feature on Kerbal Space Program, so I thought we were higher off the ground than we were. Of course, I don't have like a boom. That's essentially what happened to the spacecraft. It's coming in. Engine didn't start up when it was supposed to. Well, it did, and then it stopped, and there was a pause, and then they lost telemetry. So I go ahead and try that again, see if I could slow myself down to be able to make that at all. And we got pretty close here on this attempt, but unfortunately, we still hit the surface at like 400 meters a second. Let's see, 350-ish. So that's what quick saves are for. Bring it back. I bet the Space IL team wishes they had a quick save option today. Still did very good though to get it all the way there, work through the problems that they did, and it honestly sounds like they may try it again. So that would be awesome. They get the funding, and in some years we see it again. I'm also looking forward to see if some of the other teams will get their rovers finished and get them up there. So we'll see. Starting our landing burn a little earlier this time. So this is essentially the mission profile that we had today, and at this point here, that main engine would have just kind of cut out. They were pulsing it, like that they've been doing. They just kind of stopped pulsing and started speeding up, and then it did come back online, and then they lost telemetry, and then they waited about 5 or 10 minutes, and then they said that mission had been a failure because at the given time there was no way that it would have been able to be recovered at that point. It was on the moon in lots of pieces. So here we come down, and I did not successfully land this time either. And you'll notice I am going full throttle and off because this engine they're not able to throttle the engine. It's all or nothing. So the plan was to come down, completely stop, arrest the velocity about right here, and then let the whole thing just float down, and the landing legs were designed to take the impact. Um, Unfortunately, we had a bounce. Landing legs here in KSP were not able to model the landing legs that the beresheet lander had. Tried to get us back up, and we tried and tried and tried. It didn't work. I'll go ahead and just fast forward through the rest of this. We do the landing correctly, so I had to do it a little bit differently than they did in real life. But in real life, that was the profile. Come up, stop, hover, come back down, and land on the moon. But it just wasn't able to be modeled here correctly in Kerbal Space Program because we got a little bounce. We're on a little hill, so it didn't work out. But so here's my KSP version of the landing. It would have been so cool if they had landed. I really hope that they try again and get it the next time. So there's our hover coming down, and I hit it just another one little time, and there we go, landing. Perfect. Well, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe if you know other information about Beresheet or the mission plans or anything like that. One last note: the planned landing site was going to be just a couple hundred kilometers away from the landing site of Apollo 15. So it'd be interesting to see where the debris scattered from there. Yeah, hope you enjoy. See you next time.